So this was tragic news that broke this morning while we were working on the show. Kudos to Malcolm, who got this together at the last minute. State Department confirms U.S. citizen Gonzalo Lira is detained in Ukraine. This is September 20th, 2023. Lira was arrested by Ukrainian authorities for his view on the war. Hang on, Keaton. I thought we were defending democracy and stuff over there.
Yeah, upholding our values. This is an interesting case, given that pretense.
I just can't believe this happened. It's almost like it's a country full of Nazi battalions and deeply corrupt, like they were saying. Bad people say that. The State Department has confirmed that American citizen Gonzalo Lira is being held in a Ukrainian prison over charges related to his speech and views on the war in Ukraine. Lira is a popular YouTuber and journalist who was arrested by the Ukrainian Security Services, SBU, in May for creating content that was critical of the Ukrainian government and explaining how the Russia-Ukraine war was provoked. He was charged over claims that he, quote, justified the Russian invasion. NATO did that all by themselves. Lira, who is a citizen of Chile, reappeared on social media in July when he posted a video and Twitter thread saying he was released on bail and was attempting to cross the border into Hungary. So this is a tweet of Gonzalo Lira on the border with Hungary trying to escape Ukraine. So this is some video.
In fact, after this 30-hour session, one of the thugs who had really hurt me. I mean, he hit me pretty badly, especially on the chest. He hit me like right here on the sternum, repetitively and so hard that it left this huge bruise. And by the way, the cell boss, the guy higher, berated him for having left a mark on me because, of course, the kind of torture that they want to do doesn't leave a mark. That's the point of it. See, because if it leaves a mark, then it's evidence. You see. So anyway, that prisoner who beat me so relentlessly over that 30-hour stretch, after, as we're trying to figure out a way to get this cash to these gangsters, these thugs, he came to me spontaneously and apologized. It wasn't his idea, but he had to do it, because he was a prisoner. He'd been in CISO prison for 2 years already. So, it's not that he wanted to do this, but that he had to do it.
All right. So this is something we hear a lot about Russia using prisoners. It sounds like what he's describing is that they used a prisoner to administer torture. And the prisoner was afraid to say no because he's a prisoner. I'm reading this right, eh?
Yeah, looks right to me.
This is something, when we had Max on, he didn't write this piece, but the Gray Zone has a piece about how at the beginning of the war, Zelensky released some of the most horrific criminals from the Ukrainian prisons, people who had been guilty of rape and murder, and released them and put them into the army to work off their crimes. So it sounds like they're in the habit of doing what we accuse Russia of.
And, I understood, because that's the way it operates. Now, I'm telling you all of this so that you understand my situation. My case originally started as a free speech issue. But because of the SBU and the inherent corruption of the SBU and the criminal justice system in Ukraine, I will definitely be sent to a prison labor camp where I will most certainly die. And so I decided that the smart thing was take my chances in terms of getting across the border. Right now, I'm maybe 5 kilometers away from the border with Hungary. Over the last 2 days, I rode my bike just about 1,300 kilometers from Kharkov all the way here to the border. And my intention is to cross the border at...
Okay, so he wanted to cross the border. Obviously, he didn't make it. This is a quote from the State Department. "We are aware of the detention of Mr. Lira in Ukraine. We take our role in assisting U.S. citizens abroad seriously and are providing all appropriate assistance." Yeah. So the Gray Zone asked State Department about the status of Gonzalo Lira. This is August 1st, 2023. Who was jailed by the Ukrainian government. And at that time, he was making a break for the Hungarian border. They had not recaptured him yet.
Cosgrove with the Gray Zone. So back in May, I asked you about Gonzalo Lira. He was the U.S. citizen arrested in Ukraine for posting dissident content online. And you told me the State Department was aware of his arrest in May. And we learned last night through a series of tweets by him that he had been tortured in the Ukrainian prison. And he was now on a motorcycle with a broken rib trying to flee to the Hungarian border. And so I'm wondering, if this is true, given the State Department knew of his arrest and his detention, how has this been allowed to occur? We have a U.S. citizen being detained and perhaps tortured in the prison of one of our strongest allies.
Well, you lost me with the perhaps and the if this is true. I think I'd want to verify those reports before I commented on it. Alex, go ahead.
Alex, go ahead. Is the State Department investigating?
I just want to verify anything before I comment. Go ahead, Alex.
Why do these people all look like these bloodless freaks? All of them. All of them. They all look like they were cast to be like familiars to a vampire in a Blade movie.
No, these are the people who really run the world, but they don't have the charisma or the talent to run for office, so they have to take the backstage jobs.
That's a very good theory. We have to. Nobody's really done a real breakdown of this. The Project 2025 thing. We've really got to do that. And in brief, this is a plan by the Republicans, no matter who wins, to essentially purge the permanent bureaucracy. And whether that's being cast as a push, it's the Nazis taking over. But if you believe that there's a permanent deep state run by people like that and Anthony Blinken, it doesn't sound like such a bad idea. So it's definitely something to discuss. So Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk have rallied behind an American red pill dating coach turned Russian propagandist detained in Ukraine. So what? He's like Tom Cruise in Magnolia before this.
Yeah, and so what?
That's hard for me to imagine this guy playing that role. What's that?
And so what? He deserves to be tortured to death?
According to Business Insider, at least this writer for Business. I'm a little surprised. Usually Business Insider is better than that. They're having a real hard time right now with Ackman because they dared to expose his wife as the plagiarist she is.
Seem to be out of Business Insider.
Yeah. So tragically, it is with great sadness I must announce that Gonzalo Lira passed away in a hospital, according to his father, who has been fighting to get his son much needed medical attention for the past weeks. Here is a handwritten note from Gonzalo, which I received on January 4th. This is Alex Rubinstein. There's the handwritten note, and we have a transcription. I have had double pneumonia, both lungs, as well as pneumothorax. Never heard of that. And a very severe case of edema, swelling of the body. All this started in mid-October, but was ignored by the prison. They only admitted I had pneumonia at a December 22nd hearing. I am about to have a procedure to reduce the edema pressure in my lungs, which is causing me extreme shortness of breath to the point of passing out after minimal activity or even just talking for 2 minutes. And this is from his grieving father. I cannot accept the way my son has died. He was tortured, extorted, incommunicado for 8 months and 11 days, and the U.S. Embassy did nothing to help my son. The responsibility of this tragedy is the dictator Zelensky, with the concurrence of a senile American president, Joe Biden, Gonzalo's father wrote. Gonzalo Lira, this is from Tucker Carlson. Gonzalo Lira Sr. says his son has died at 55 in a Ukrainian prison where he was being held for the crime of criticizing the Zelensky and Biden governments. Gonzalo Lira was an American citizen, but the Biden administration clearly supported his imprisonment and torture. Several weeks ago, we spoke to his father, who predicted his son would be killed. And this is Max Blumenthal. Gonzalo Lira was jailed by Ukraine's post-Maidan regime for speaking against its war effort. He was a U.S. citizen left to languish and die by Ukraine's main patron in Washington and is now apparently dead. Another crime by the authoritarian Zelensky-Biden cartel. So that's really confusing, because I thought we were supporting a democratic country and fighting to preserve their freedoms against the autocratic Russian onslaught. This is topsy-turvy. I've heard Zelensky has shut down the press. He's shut down political parties. He's fielding Nazi battalions. He's putting pedophiles and murderers in the front lines. It's very strange. It doesn't sound like, it sounds like at best they're no better than what we claim Russia is. So why are we supporting them?
Yeah, well, we had Danny Haifong on earlier in this live stream, and he mentioned, in relation to the Yemeni uprising, he was very sort of bullish on their ability to prevail, because he said you can't kill an idea, right? And that's a phrase that we like to use here in the West to sort of validate our own conquest. Joe Biden said that very thing almost to the word in that whisper scream speech that he gave on the January 6th anniversary that weekend, whatever it was. He said, we're the only country in history that's built on an idea. Okay, first of all, that's not true. Second, what idea? What's the idea? What country built on what worthwhile idea would just allow this to happen? And this is an egregious example that happened today. What country sits by and lets 100+ journalists in Gaza be murdered? Right. What country sits by and watches as Julian Assange gets tortured to death? His hearing is coming up in just over a month. Do you hear any opinion expressed on that from anybody on TV? No. So what exactly is the idea that we represent? Nobody can really name it, which, to Danny's point, is probably why we lose more than we win. Because maybe you can't kill an idea, and maybe we don't have an idea. At this point, the ethos of this country, and the West more broadly, but especially this country, is might for might's sake.
Right.
Money for money's sake, right. Power for power's sake. And that's it. And it's hard to rally a population around that, especially when economic conditions degrade to the point where the people here don't even feel like they're getting anything out of it.
Yeah, it's especially doing what we do, being in a space like this, it's relatable, right? Like, imagine that you went to cover Ukraine. We know people who have covered Ukraine, who have come back. And this poor guy never came back, man. They grabbed him, they arrested him. The U.S. did nothing about it. And that really does demonstrate, as Lira's poor father expressed, the government did nothing for him. You're telling me one phone call from Biden would not have had this guy on a plane back to the United States?
Yeah, obviously.
That's your government. That's your
Biden,
government.
One call from Matt Gaetz. I mean, any of these people holding up the funding, man. Anybody who has the power to sign a check, whether it's a congressperson, a block of congresspeople, or the commander-in-chief himself, anybody applied a modicum of pressure and he'd have been home.
Yeah, your government is a criminal regime that does not give a shit about you. All the do-goody-good American rights and freedoms, it's bullshit. Bullshit. And this proves it. There's an American citizen they let be tortured to death in jail by an autocratic regime calling itself a democracy.